Welcome to our channel, all friends. If you are new to my channel, please subscribe my channel and press the bell icon to stay update for new videos. Thanks. Let's start new video. I had gone to Lahore for some time to stay with my married sister. When I returned home, I heard news that completely stunned me. My friend Farwa had gotten married. Farwa's marriage had already been arranged, but with her cousin Saqib. However, when I came back, my mother told me that Farwa had gotten married in a hurry, and not to Saqib, but to someone else. Mother didn't know much beyond that, but this news alone was enough to shake me. Farwa loved Saqib deeply. How could she possibly marry someone else? I immediately said to my mother, "You must have misunderstood. How would you even know what's happening with Farwa? She lives so far away, and you don't even know exactly where her house is. How could you find out about her marriage while I was away?" But mother insisted, no, I met Farwa's mother at the market. She was the one who told me that Farwa is married now. She even said, "Now it's time to get your daughter married too." I told her that if she knows of a good match, she should let me know, because truly it's time for my Shumaila to get married as well. Mother said this while gathering the scattered clothes around her, but her words felt like the sky crashing down on me. I couldn't believe it or what had happened. Farwa's mother had already arranged her engagement at such a young age, and now she had hurriedly married her off too, that too to someone else. I couldn't understand what was going on. And on top of that, my mother had told her to find a match for me as well. I didn't like Farwa's mother at all. She was always wandering from place to place, never staying at home. She would arrange odd and mismatched marriages just to make money. Who knows to whom they had forcibly married off poor Farwa. As soon as I heard the news, I couldn't stop thinking about Farwa, the girl who used to constantly express her deep love for Saqib. Now I could only imagine that Farwa's mother had been terribly unfair to her. I knew I had to meet Farwa and talk to her. So I said to my mother, "Amma, I'm going to Farwa's house. I'll be back soon. I need to find out where she went after getting married and who she ended up marrying." Mother was curious too, so she agreed but warned me, "Fine, but be sure to return before your father comes home. These days, your father's mood is very bad. Your uncle had lent him some money a while back, and now he's demanding it back. That's why your father stays angry all the time. If he comes home and doesn't find you, he might create a scene. He was already upset that you stayed at your sister's in-laws' house in Lahore." Mother explained everything to me, and after listening to her, I quickly left the house. After all, this was nothing new. My father had never been very responsible with money. Sometimes he borrowed from one person, sometimes from another. And because of this cycle of debts, creditors would often show up at our door. This would enrage my father, and he would vent all his anger on us. I had grown up watching this, from childhood till now. That's why I had gotten used to his anger by now. Shrugging off these thoughts, I made my way to the next neighborhood, to Farwa's house. When Farwa's mother saw me, she immediately embraced me lovingly and said, "Oh, you had gone to Lahore. Otherwise, Farwa would have definitely invited you to her wedding. We had such a grand wedding for her." There was pride shining on her face, but for me, what was even more surprising than her proud expression was the condition of their home. The same broken-down house where even two decent chairs were once hard to find now looked completely furnished and properly set up. There was now an expensive sofa, a glass-top table, and many other things that once seemed impossible to imagine in Farwa's house. After all, she had no father, and her widowed mother barely made a living by arranging marriages. That's why she was always wandering from one house to another. I looked around Farwa's home in astonishment, and without thinking blurted out, "How did all this change?" I immediately felt embarrassed for asking so directly, but Farwa's mother simply placed a loving hand on my head and said, "It was just Farwa's destiny. Her fate opened up, and along with it, so did the fortunes of our household." I stared at her in surprise as she gently made me sit on the sofa and continued, "Farwa got married into a very wealthy family. Her husband is a rich, prosperous man. He turned our days of hardship into days of comfort. Saqib, on the other hand, never really held a proper job. He just went on singing praises of his love for Farwa and loafed around our house. I couldn't ruin my daughter's life by sending her off with such a boy." That's why I arranged her marriage elsewhere myself. At first, Farwa created quite a fuss, but once I sent her off, she eventually accepted her new life. Now she's very happy in her home. Farwa's mother shared all this with great pride and happiness, and hearing it all made me feel happy too. I said, "Auntie, I want to meet Farwa as well." She replied warmly, "Of course, why not?" Then she handed me the address of Farwa's in-laws' house. When I looked at it, my eyes widened in shock. It was one of the most expensive areas in the city, and the address mentioned a grand bungalow. I asked her, "How did you manage to find such a match?" She smiled and said, "Actually, the man Farwa married came to me himself. He was looking for a young and beautiful girl, and when I saw the opportunity, I married off my Farwa to him." The sparkle in her eyes said it all. She was absolutely delighted with this marriage. I said goodbye to her and returned home. When I told my mother everything, she too was filled with curiosity and said, "This is truly a surprising turn of events." Mother said longingly, "You and I will go together to Farwa's house. I want to see for myself how Rashida managed to strike such a deal. If she rejected Saqib and married her daughter off to someone else, then surely that man must be extremely wealthy. Maybe Farwa's fate really has turned around. And who knows, maybe someday your fate will change too, and then our days of hardship would finally come to an end. At least we would be free from your father's endless debts." Hearing the wistful tone in Amma's voice, I couldn't help but burst out laughing. "Amma," I said, "even if our fortunes change, Abba's habit of borrowing money won't. He has developed a passion for taking loans now. He still has to return a few thousand rupees to Uncle, but even for that, he's making him run in circles. No wonder Uncle gets so angry." I spoke in defense of Uncle, and Amma, half smiling, lightly tapped me on the head and said, "Come on now, hurry up and make some roti. Your father will be home soon. We'll go to Farwa's house tomorrow morning, after your father leaves for his shop. Let's go and see what kind of prince her mother has found for her, one who made her the queen of a palace." I smiled at Amma's words. I too was missing Farwa terribly. It had been about 15 to 20 days since I had last met her. So I quickly prepared the rotis, served dinner to Abba, and then retreated to my room. The few days I had spent at my sister's house were some of the most peaceful and joyful moments of my life. Her husband had a bit of money, and during those 15 days, he had fulfilled many of my small wishes, things I could only dream about in my own home. Perhaps that was why I loved visiting my sister's house so much. Every now and then, I would pester Amma to send me to Lahore again. The next morning, as soon as Abba left for his shop, Amma and I set out with the address in hand. When we arrived, we found ourselves standing in front of a grand, magnificent bungalow. We didn't know how to go inside, so we informed the security guard that we had come to meet Madame Farwa. The guard made a call inside, and after speaking to someone, politely allowed us in. We stepped into a luxurious drawing room where everything, from the sofas to the carpets, seemed to announce their worth. Amma could hardly believe that this could really be Farwa's in-laws' house. She kept touching everything in wonder, and honestly, I was no different. Friendship aside, seeing Farwa's in-laws' home awakened a pang of jealousy in my heart. After all, I too was living through such hard times, while Farwa's life had completely transformed. After a few moments, Farwa entered the drawing room. Seeing her outfit, her jewelry, and her glamorous appearance, I was left completely stunned. Farwa immediately rushed over and hugged me tightly, saying, "Shumaila, why weren't you at my wedding? I missed you so much. You know, my wedding procession was so grand. The entire neighborhood came out to watch. It was exactly the kind of grand wedding you always dreamt of seeing. Drums, music, fireworks, everything was there. Only you were missing." Farwa complained lovingly, and I could only look at her silently, overwhelmed by everything. She seated me on the sofa, then called out to a maid and ordered food to be prepared for us. Even Amma, who had been lively a few minutes earlier, now fell completely silent, gazing at Farwa's dazzling jewelry. Farwa said warmly, "Amma had told me you would be coming to meet me. I've been waiting for you since morning. And don't worry, I'll send you both back with my driver. No need to suffer the bumps and jolts of a rickshaw ride." Farwa spoke with such contentment that the fire of jealousy burned even hotter inside me. "Farwa, your life has completely changed. What magic have you done? Tell me some prayer, some secret trick, I asked, half joking, half envious. Farwa just smiled and said, I didn't do anything. It was all Amma's efforts. She made the decision herself and fixed my marriage. You already know I love Saqib, but Amma made me understand at the right time that there's no point in marrying a useless, irresponsible man and suffering all my life. She continued, just look at your own Abba, Shumaila. Always borrowing from one person or another, constantly burdened with debts, and leaving your family embarrassed in front of creditors. I didn't want that kind of life for myself or for my children. So when Amma explained it to me, I agreed immediately. Today, I'm so happy with my decision. My husband treats me like a queen. He literally washes my feet. We have no shortage of servants. Everything I could wish for is at my fingertips. Sure, every relationship demands some compromises, but I made peace with it. I accepted that Saqib wasn't meant for me, and now I'm truly happy, Farwa concluded. Then excitedly she said, come on, let me show you my bungalow. She began taking me from one grand room to another. Amma followed us too, equally amazed. As we moved from room to room, a thought kept echoing in my mind. If only I were in Farwa's place. If only this luxurious palace belonged to me, my entire life would have changed. I imagined how happy I would be if all my secret desires were fulfilled, if I had all these beautiful things. Finally, Farwa brought us into her bedroom, and I literally forgot to blink. A massive, king-size bed stood proudly in the center. Elegant paintings adorned the walls, luxurious carpets covered the floors, and mounted on the wall was a nearly 55-inch LED TV, something I had only ever dreamt of having. The moment I saw that LED TV, I shrieked out loud, Farwa, this is a full 55 inches. Hearing me, Farwa burst out laughing and said, yes, our bungalow even has a theater room where my husband and I watch movies together. Then she grabbed my hand and led me toward the theater room. I couldn't believe my eyes that it was like a real cinema inside a house. A massive screen was mounted on the wall. Plush velvet sofas were laid out, and the lighting could be dimmed just like in a real movie theater. Farwa said proudly, every Saturday, my husband, his first wife, and I watch movies here together. Hearing this, I almost jumped out of my skin. What do you mean, Farwa, first wife? Farwa went quiet for a moment, then calmly explained, yes, I am my husband's second wife. His first wife still lives here too, but she doesn't mind my presence at home. When there's so much money, there's no need for jealousy between co-wives. She lives her life, I live mine. She's still sleeping. Once she wakes up, I'll introduce you to her. Hearing this, Amma and I were stunned. We couldn't imagine how two co-wives could live together peacefully. Farwa then led us to the dining room. The table was already set, and every dish looked grander and richer than the last. We had just started eating when a man walked into the room. The moment my eyes fell on him, I froze. He was an old man, at least 80 years old, completely bald, and walked slowly toward us. He sat down directly across from me, and his gaze immediately fixed on me. Intense, unsettling. There was something in his stare that made me feel like I was melting under his scrutiny. I looked at Farwa in panic, but her face was smiling, calm, as if everything was perfectly normal. Farwa introduced us casually. This is Zaroon, my husband. And Zaroon, this is my best friend, Shumaila. Hearing Farwa's words, it felt like the ceiling of the bungalow had collapsed onto my head. Amma looked just as shocked. He was an 80-year-old man, probably with barely any teeth left, and yet Farwa was proudly declaring him to be her husband. I genuinely thought either Farwa had lost her mind, or perhaps I was stuck in some terrible nightmare. Farwa must have noticed the horror on my face because she quickly kicked me under the table, and I immediately tried to control my expressions. But Amma's eyes were still wide open in disbelief. The old man sat with us for a while. He barely ate a few bites, but the entire time, his eyes stayed fixed on me. His gaze so heavy it made me feel like I was melting under it. After a while, he stood up and slowly left the room. The moment he was gone, I couldn't hold back anymore and almost screamed, Farwa, are you out of your mind? This old man is the one you married? You left Saqib for this? He looks even older than 80. Farwa simply smiled and calmly replied, do you see this grand mansion? These jewels, these clothes, this incredible food? All of this is because of that old man, she added with a wink. Even though he's much older, he's stronger than most young men. I'm happy, and so is his first wife. He could legally marry up to 4 women if he wanted. I could only stare at her in shock, feeling genuinely sorry for the state of her mind. How could an 80-year-old possibly be stronger than a young man? We had barely finished eating when another young, beautiful girl approached the dining table. Seeing us, she looked surprised and asked Farwa, who are these guests? Farwa introduced her to us. She was none other than her co-wife. By now, I felt like I was really trapped in some horrifying dream because the girl was even more beautiful than Farwa. I was left astounded by the old man's luck. Or perhaps it was the result of his wealth that these 2 young girls were throwing away their youth to be his wives. After a while, Amma and I sat with Farwa, but there was no sign of regret in her demeanor. We soon got up and left for home. Once we were home, Amma and I could only talk about Farwa, how her mother had brainwashed her into leaving a handsome man like Saqib and marrying this old man. Money certainly wasn't everything. Later that evening, when Abba returned home, Amma told him everything. Upon hearing the story, Abba said, if only our Shamila could have a match like that. My debts would be paid off too. His words seemed to carry weight, and that night I received a call from Farwa. She said, Shamila, you know, my husband really likes you, and he wants to marry you. I was taken aback and said, I'll let you know after I think about it. Farwa pressed further, would you marry my husband? Think carefully. Such proposals don't come every day. I couldn't believe it. I angrily responded, are you out of your mind? Your husband is an 80-year-old man. Why would I marry him? I'm not blind like you, chasing after wealth. Farwa replied calmly, think carefully. You'll never get an offer like this again. How long will you keep enduring your father's debts? One day a creditor might come for you instead of just the household items. This old man is loving, and I'm telling you, he's still quite young at heart. That's why he has 2 wives. Agree to the marriage and your life will change. Your parents' lives will be peaceful too. Otherwise, you'll end up married off to some creditor. Maybe another old man. Her words made me furious, and I ended the call abruptly. But Farwa didn't back down. The next day, she came to our house with her husband's marriage proposal. When she brought up the proposal in front of Amma and Abba, Abba jumped in before Amma could even react. Really? Does your husband truly want to marry our Shamila? He asked excitedly. Farwa quickly nodded and placed 50,000 rupees on the table. This is from my husband as an engagement gift. Within a week, he will give 2 lakh rupees for the wedding. You can handle the preparations. After that, he'll pay off all your debts, no matter how much they are. She spoke so casually, as if she wasn't bringing in a co-wife, but a sister-in-law. Abba immediately said, what could be better than this? He eagerly grabbed the 50,000 rupees and finalized the engagement right then and there. Meanwhile, my heart was screaming. I wanted to slap Farwa right then. She had turned from a friend into an enemy. I cursed the moment I had ever stepped into her house. If only I hadn't gone that day, this disaster wouldn't have fallen upon me. Abba used the money to pay off some debts and assured the rest of the creditors they'd be paid within a week. Meanwhile, wedding preparations began in full swing, despite my refusal. I cried all day, but Abba didn't listen. And Amma? I don't know what spell he cast on her, but she sided with him too. 15 days later, I was married off and sent to my in-laws' house with Farwa. She gave me the room next to hers, decorating it beautifully. Then came the moment I dreaded. When my old husband entered the room, my hands and feet trembled. I was sure he'd be useless, but within minutes, he shattered all my doubts and completely dominated me. I was writhing in his grip as he claimed his rights over me. Morning came and I was completely exhausted, but he wasn't. Instead, he cheerfully declared, "You're even younger and more beautiful than both my wives." His words brought me no joy. The next morning, when Farwa entered my room, she was shocked to see my pale face. "What's wrong? Didn't our husband please you?" she asked. I glared at her. "This is all your fault. You married me off to an 80-year-old man." Farwa sat beside me. Tell me the truth. Did he lack anything? Was his love insufficient? I shook my head bitterly. No, that wretched old man turned out to be more vigorous than younger men. Farwa smirked. Then what's the problem? What did you have at your father's house? Some old creditor would have snatched you away and made your life miserable. Isn't this better? Now you and I can live happily together in the same home. Her words held some truth, so I stayed silent. After all, the marriage was done. That night, Farwa took me to the kitchen. She mixed turmeric, saffron, and a powdered herb into warm milk and handed it to me. It's your turn for the next week. Make sure our husband drinks this every night. Just wait and see how much strength it gives him. I panicked. Farwa, what is this? His vigor, but also slowly poison him. If taken regularly, they'll eventually cause a heart attack. Her eyes gleamed. Good, isn't it? Once the old man is gone, we'll inherit everything and live in luxury. He has a colorful appetite. Whenever he sees a young girl, he starts drooling. After he laid eyes on you, he made my life hell. If I hadn't arranged your marriage to him, he would have divorced me and thrown me out on the streets. That's why I married you off to him. Now keep him happy for a while. So happy that he doesn't even think of marrying again. And in that time, he'll leave this world on his own. Hearing Farwa's words, I nearly screamed. I had never imagined she could be plotting to kill her own husband. Yes, she continued, before this old man brings another girl home, we'll send him straight to the afterlife and then split his entire estate between us. Following Farwa's instructions, I began feeding him that same milk. With every sip, he grew stronger, dividing his time equally among the three of us. Then, in the third month, one night, he had a heart attack and left this world. The moment he was gone, all his wealth came to us. We started our lives anew. All three of us had been trapped by our parents' greed. Farwa, too, had been forced into this marriage because of her mother, just like me. But now we were free. Together, we started a small clothing business and are now moving towards success. Sometimes I wonder, was what we did to that old man right or wrong? But then I think, maybe men like him deserve exactly this. They try to buy young girls with their wealth, treating them like slaves beneath their feet. My husband's behavior was exactly like that, as if we were his purchased property. He'd threaten divorce at every turn, demanding his money back. But today, all three of us are happy. Tell me, did we do the right thing or was it wrong?